Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you this morning. And first of all, I want to congratulate Christine, because today is the International Women Human Rights Defenders Day. We have so many international days. And naturally, it is not simply a coincidence that it is part of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. I think the fight for recognition of women's rights also involves the protection of the most vulnerable and exposed to violence, to injustice, and also inequality. I think this is also a different sort of violence. And we see right now, I think can't be clearer, the fight of the brave women in Iran fighting for their rights. And we all support them in this. I really thank and congratulate the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Women, one of our most committed partners for organizing this international conference that brings together all the main stakeholders. And we made progress. For a very long time, and not only in Armenia, the fight against violence was discreet, was hidden, was only led by activists. But now this struggle came on the agenda of all national and international stakeholders, and I think slowly people start to understand that we have to work together really to fight violence against women. We know that the manifestation of violence can be reflected at various levels, the social society level, the institutional, the community level, and the individual level. And all of them can frighten women, can offend women, and can violate women. And alongside the physical and the degrading violence, there is also a psychological violence. We have bullying, we have harassment, we have sexual harassment. We do not dare to talk about it. And this can be much more vicious and more frequent then it is generally seen, and it is also, unfortunately, found in social networks, and there is more hatred and more violence against women as such, but also against individuals. And for this, I think we have to stand up. This is something that is not acceptable. It is the result of perceptions, of stereotypes, honestly, of fear. Because if you try to degrade women, to tell them that they are neither capable to do a certain job, and you only reduce them on certain roles, you show that you are not adult enough and not brave enough to cope with us. So I'm very, very clear in this. And this is not only existing here. And we find it in all our societies. And we have to continue to really point the finger at this sort of behavior wherever it happens. Naturally, we all think that the family is the first place to feel safe, to have a good environment. I think most violence often starts exactly in this private circle where the silence is remained and people do not dare to report the violence they experience. This is not only even for women, it is for girls, it is for kids, so we have to see it in a broader context. And it should be not, let's say, punished or a negative reaction against this. This is unacceptable. And then naturally you have all the elements in society, whether you take school, whether you take university, whether you take the working place, yeah? And we have to help young people really to learn, first of all, how we communicate among each other, that we should respect each other, that there is no difference between girls and boys, and that we want to support them all and give them the best opportunity for their own lives. Only if we have a positive narrative, we can fight these stereotypes. So we have to be vigilant. We have also to look at all these strange sort of jokes, yeah? How many jokes I heard in my life. And we have to reject it, because there is a certain level which I think is totally unacceptable, and humiliation often starts with so-called jokes, yeah? The same is valid if we see of women in vulnerable situation. Yesterday I got the report, the ad hoc report of the human rights defenders on women and minors in penitentiary system. Many thanks to Christine and her team, because she takes up all these elements and she shows us where things should be changed. So I think the society, churches, trade unions, business association, everybody must join and put in place measures for zero tolerance against gender-based violence. And there must be an atmosphere of confidence where women dare really to report what happened to them. And this is, I think, also very important in the working place environment, because also there we find a lot of violence which is never reported because you fear to lose your job. The state and the authorities must protect, they must monitor, they should follow up in court cases, cases of violence against women. And I can tell you, we have a zero harassment policy in the European Union. We are now really heading up, and we are asking, for example, every staff member to follow a certain training, because we are also not free of these kind of behaviors. So it is the task of the authorities to look for the protection of the weakest, and really also the marginalized elements in the society. And this is for us in the European Union to really follow this principle is a requirement in all our programs. This took us a certain while, but we are there now. So, as I said, in social media and media, there is often a lot of harassment. So the media must also play a role. They also have to educate, they have to inform, and to tell the stories. So they have a very important psychological and pedagogical role, and we have to take them on board in order to really make progress on this. The civil society is very much involved, and wherever I go, I'm very much impressed by the engagement. And I'm very well aware that you are sometimes under pressure, that you get threatened, that you get offended, and you can be sure we stand up for you. I will go and I will also follow up the cases, because I think this is unacceptable. And in all societies we have the so-called traditionalists. And under this word of traditional values, we think we can behave like hell. This is not acceptable. And also, I think the church has to come in and say, to beat your wife is not written in the Bible. Please, also let us stop this narrative that gets more and more difficult. We as international community, we accompany the movement of change, both in our own countries, but also in our partner countries. And we pay great attention to this. So we want to respect international rules, but we also respect, let's say, the specificities of each country, and we try to adapt, but the objective and the role and the goal remains the same. So, and this is, I think, the choice of a pluralistic democracy. It is a question of justice, it is a question of law, it is a question of equality, it is a question of humanity. So this, I think, is an obligation for all of us. So this needs clear legal acts. So therefore, let me add that it is time for Armenia to ratify the Istanbul Convention, which proposes a method and a legal framework to fight against this violence. And together we should stand up against the people who tell us that it is, let's say, a wrong gender policy. I think this has nothing to do with me, and we need a clear anti-discrimination legal framework. And this is also something we need here in Armenia. This means also, you see, if you deprive women of their rights and their possibilities really to find an adequate job, if you don't have the legal framework to support the combination of family life and working life, and we all have to make efforts, yeah? It doesn't fall from heaven. This is necessary to have the business community on board, the entrepreneurs, the trade unions. They also have to stand up, that we get, let's say, a working environment that gives each and everybody the possibility to really develop their own capacities and to find the right balance for themselves. But I think it is no longer the time where somebody can tell us what we should do. We decide ourselves, and this is important for every woman wherever she lives. So I think it is a struggle for everybody, and everyone is responsible in his and her environment and level to change mentalities and to change behavior and to find a positive narrative. And this is one thing, I see my Bruno is one of the few men here. It is also important to get men on board. We cannot do it alone. We have to find, let's say, men that are open and understand where we are heading to, and really to support us. There are some colleagues who can't be here today, but I know that in the circle of my EU ambassadors, there are rather very outspoken and engaged male ambassadors who stand for the same rights. So we must unite our means really to promote these most fundamental human rights, and you can count on us that we will continue to support you on this way. Thank you.
Շնորհակալություն